Hi, I'm Paul Brodie. We're back. I know we've been missing for a while, but, well, some things went on. I got a new look. Mitch is still behind the camera. So we're gonna have an easy video. That's what I told Mitch. Nothing really hard or challenging. Got to get back into the swing of it. So we have a frame here. This is a Romax frame. And I know that right up here it says Climax, but I looked in my frame book. Here's one of my frame books. I have 4 books in total. This is one, and you can see here all the numbers. So looking at the frame here, it's number 279. It's where we always stamp the numbers, serial numbers right there on the bottom bracket. And then we look in the book. So number 279, and it's a Romax, and it was built in January of 1988. So this is a fairly old frame. So what's going on with the frame is it's got some rust here. Can you see all the rust here on the chainstay bridge tube? See, it's rusted so bad I got a scriber and it goes in there quite a ways. What happened was someone was riding in the rain and they didn't have an Allen screw in there, so the water got in there, it didn't get out, and it rusted. So it needs a new bridge tube. That's one of the things we're going to do. And on the forks, there's nothing really wrong with them, but the owner wants U-brake bosses. So the U-brake bosses would go approximately right there. So the old candy bosses need to come off. These probably need to be remitered because we have to get the spacing right. It's going to be about 86 millimeters from center to center. So we're going to work on that. Thanks for stopping by, and I'm going to grab a hacksaw. I have to take out a tube, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to hacksaw a section out of the middle, and then I'm going to use my welding torch. I'm going to heat it up, melt the nickel silver, and then each of those pieces will fall off, hopefully. And then I'm going to use a file. I'm going to file it smooth. We're going to make up a new bridge tube. I've got some chromoly here. This is 049, it's 5/8 of an inch. We're going to miter in the mill, braze it in, and then we'll add a fender braze on. So let's do a little hacksawing here. Have to go easy because I don't want the hacksaw to go down here and make a mark, so got to go easy. There we go. So you can see how it's pretty rusted. It just collapsed. And if you look, can you see all the rust coming out of there? Let me see. Look at all that rust. Just a small tube, but quite a bit of rust. I'm just heating up the bridge tube right now. I'm trying not to get much heat onto the chainstay at all because the tube is buckling now. Okay, so one down. So what I'll do now is to heat it up, and I'll take a wire brush and I'll take off the excess of the nickel silver. Got my trusty little file. It's a little bit coarse, so it should take off the metal. I got the bridge tube here. It's got a black coating on it. I'm going to sand that off because it's a lot easier if I do it now in the lathe rather than hold it in a vise on each end. So. Here's the bridge tube. This is the hole saw, 1¼ hole saw. That's for the chain stays. And it gets mitered at, if I recall correctly, 18 degrees. So I got the mill set up. So it gets held in this little holder here because this is too small to hold in the vise and it's too short. So you see how this works? It's a quick release, old style, off a seat. So that clamps that. So we need to miter like that, and then we need to mark it and flip it around. So how do you know if you've got this lined up with this miter? So I've got a little bit of a trick here. So what I do is I take some angle, aluminum angle, can't call it aluminum angle iron because it's aluminum, make a mark like that. So when this gets held in here, see there's a slot on the top? So that felt pen mark goes in the slot. And then I miter that, I mark this side, I cut it off, and then I flip it around, and then the felt pen mark goes right in the slot. That's how I know that these two miters are in line with each other, because otherwise, if they're off a little bit, it's not going to sit in the stays properly, and you'll have the bridge tube at an angle possibly. So this is better. So let's go over to the mill now. Take this, and we'll set it up. I got a feeler gauge. I got the digital readout. Got a 1/2-inch rod. So I bring this up so that I can just move the feeler gauge. This is how I center it, because I want it to be centered. There we go. See, I can move the feeler gauge. So we zero the Y, then we go back the other way. Get the feeler gauge, so there we go. Almost. There we go. Oh, a little too tight. There we go. I can move it. So the Y is at 1.158 right here. So let's say 1.160, we'll round it up. So half of 160 is 80. 80 plus 1/2 inch, half of the 1. So we're going for a 580. So we move this up. There's 580. That should be perfectly in the middle. Looks okay to me. There we go. So the bridge tube goes from here over to the other side. So what I'm doing now is I'm just measuring how long the bridge tube is going to be. And that looks pretty good right there. So if I measure across like that, so that's how long it is. So that's my miter mark right there. So that's my hacksaw mark right there. Here's where the line comes in. Remember earlier on, I drew that red line? So now this goes in like that, and I line it up so that the felt pen mark is right in the middle there. That's how I get the miters in line. That's an easy way of doing it. Otherwise, you're just kind of guessing. There we go. How's that? That looks like a good fit to me. We're gonna go with that. Got the hole halfway. Gonna drill a 1/4 inch hole for the Brazing. There you go. We have the bridge tube here, and what I want to talk about is the alignment of the bridge tube. This part of the bridge tube, the bottom, it needs to line up with the outside of the bottom bracket shell, because if you didn't do these miters properly, if one was up and one was down, you're going to have a bridge tube at an angle. When the wheel's in, you'll never see it, but if someone holds up the frame and they look at it and they eyeball it, that's a good term here. If you grab a frame ever and just hold it up and look at it, you can eyeball and see how straight the bridge tube is. It's just a very small thing in the frame builder's world, but if you know about it, you look for it. So I'm holding it with my finger here so it doesn't move. This is just all the small stuff to do with frame building. And then, because if I don't hold this with my finger, then I can move it, put it out of position, and then it's got flux all over it. If I tack it on top, which seems to be the obvious place to tack it, it's going to pull up, it's going to lift up here. So I tack on the bottom, and then it'll pull down, and then it can't go anywhere because it's in a V. So I'm going to tack it, then I'll nickel silver this one, flip the frame around, nickel silver the other side, and then the little water bottle Brazing gets silver soldered. I could nickel silver it, but I prefer silver solder. I haven't brazed in a long time. I'll do a little bit of a preheat. It dries the flux and that holds it like a really, really weak glue. So we have to get under here and do a little tack. There we go. And this is the time you can check. You just look at it, make sure that nothing's moved. And that looks good, so now I'll nickel silver this side. So I'm putting this so that this is basically horizontal. You see how this is horizontal? And that's easy to help it to flow. So I've got a pretty small flame, but it allows me to get quite a bit of control because it's been quite a while since I brazed or nickel silvered. a nice little fillet. There we go. Side 2. Okay. Okay, here's the flux I'm using. It's from the Gas Flux Company, and got an oil container here. It doesn't have any labels on it. So what we want to do is to get the flux around the boss, but not inside the threads. Because when this flux dries, hardens up, it's very hard to get off. So what I'm doing is I'm going around the side, and I do not want to get any flux inside those threads. So, and the brush isn't really helping because it's kind of old and clumpy, but we'll make it work. It's an old coping saw. It's got weights on it. So this is, it acts as a heat sink for one thing, and it also holds it level. See how it holds the boss level? And it also stops the flux from going down into the threads. So it does 3 things. Here's the silver solder. It comes in a coil. So you can always tell silver solder from nickel silver. Nickel silver comes straight. And what helps silver solder is just you sand it a little bit. It takes the oxide off the surface. It just flows that much better. So it's worth taking a moment. So I'm going to put silver solder on either side and then flow it into the middle. And silver solder, you want the torch to be close to. There you go. There we go. See it flow? So that's one side. See it flow? Flows nicely. So I got a little extra on there, and then I can flow it around here. And see how it's flowed around? So I don't have much to do here. Here we go. So that's nice and smooth. Okay. Okay, the bridge tube is done. Okay, what the plan is to put the U-brake bosses onto the forks here. But if you look at this, can you see how these are bent? Especially this one. This one's bent way out. So it's a good thing these are going to come off. I got a scraper. I'm going to scrape off a bit of paint so that when I heat it up, it doesn't smell as much. Looks like this is a spray bomb. It's coming off pretty quick. It's not like hard on there like a powder coat or anything like that. I'm going to put a little bit of flux around the boss so that it protects the fork blade a little bit. And when I heat this up, most of the heat's going to go under the boss. I don't care how red the boss gets, because they can end up on the floor. I got a 0 tip. It works for the small stuff. It works to heat up things I want to take off. You can hear it's got a hiss. That means it's a little bit of a big flame. Not huge, but big enough. You're going to see this get quite hot. So I'm putting all the heat into the boss, right? Not putting much heat onto the fork blade at all. And I'm watching for when the nickel silver starts to melt. There you go. Okay, so now I'll heat it up, and I'll take off the extra bronze nickel silver with the wire brush. Okay, old one is off. So one part of the fixture is the dummy axle, 100 millimeters. It's got a groove right in the middle. Here's the fixture. We did a video on making this, so if you're interested, it's out there. It's adjustable, you see, because it depends on the rake. So it's going to be somewhere around there. So the spacing on the boss is, we want about 86 millimeters. So let's just see how this works out. Ooh, look at that, way too wide. So I'm looking at the spacing here, because I want it to be in the middle of the fixture anyway. So that's approximate. So what we've got is the miter is seated against the fork tube, the fork blade, and then we'll grab a ruler, we'll grab a vernier, and we'll measure center to center, approximately. And can you see that? 86, so I don't even have to miter. I thought I was going to have to miter. But that looks okay, so I just need to sand these. If I was going to miter, this is what I do. I've got a block, so I would hold this in the mill vise. Can you see how the boss goes in there? Somehow it got cut off. I don't know why that happened. And then that gets held like that. This is 1 inch, and then I would take an inch hole saw and either move it one way or the other, and then that's how you change the spacing on the bosses. Pretty simple. So good, I don't have to use the mill, just have to make this all clean. That saved the whole step. That's cool. I'm going to silver solder these on. You could nickel silver them, and you could argue that nickel silver is a little stronger, but I've always silver soldered these on and never had any fall off, so that's my testimonial. So we're fluxing it up. We're going to add some heat. Okay, so here's the plan. I'm going to heat up. I'm going to put a tack here, because if I just start silver soldering around here, it could lift up, and I don't want that. So that's why I'm going to put a little tack right here, hold this end down, and then I'm going to come here and silver solder this whole boss, and then go and do that whole boss. When you're preheating, you always keep the torch moving. You don't just hold it on. Keep the torch moving. See it flow. There we go. Looks okay to me. Mitch and I would like to thank you for tuning in. I know it's been quite a while since we made a video, but figured we'd get started on some bicycle related easy videos. So this is our contribution. Thanks for watching. Mitch and I like coffee. If you buy us some coffee, that would be much appreciated. Take care. See you next time. I think what's happened is the flux has got in there a little bit, and sometimes you can move stuff around in it. So I'm having a torch issue here. Whoa!
There you go.
Did you catch that?